myself will finally get across to you. So happy that you could finally join us. Uh,
Oh, thank you. So I've been there throughout the session since Mr. Achin was speaking, but pushed into the participants. Yeah.
so, to know about what is your school doing in terms of experiential learning and your initial thoughts.
Very good, very good.
Sayu,
The topic
uh,
itself is a very interesting. Hello.
audio is not clear at all.
Yeah, there is some issue,
I
I
can't,
suppose.
I can't hear either you or Kadir. Listen, sir, I can't hear at all. Shall I reconnect? Or,
Is that
Um,
okay, ma'am? Now, can you hear now?
sir,
Now fine, I think.
on and off. Yes, sir. Kindly continue. Thank
Okay.
you, sir.
Oh, thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Right. So the topic itself appears to be a very, very interesting and trending in the field of education. Right. When we talk education or learning, it's so started with skill learnings where they try to hunt for their living and then later moved on to teacher centric. From there, it moved on to child centric. From there, it moved on to activity oriented. And now from there, it moved on to kind of the current day's topic, that is technology oriented, etc., so on and so forth. Now, what is learning? Learning itself is a very strange terminology. When I was discussing with a couple of people around, they said learning is something which is related to examination where they can score good amount of mark. For me, I believe that is not true learning. When a child learns, a child or anybody for that matter, when they learn, learning is going to be a permanent one. It cannot be taken away from the child. The skill or when you learn riding a bicycle, it stays with you for quite a long time. You cannot forget unless you have some difficulty with your pedaling or something like that, then you have a real problem riding a bicycle. Otherwise, the learning of riding a bicycle stays with you forever. Now, coming to this experiential learning, I'll just quickly go into it. Uh, Before I get into the topic, initially, as Mr. Achin Subir was talking,
Certainly.
this was a very good experiential learning for me on this platform. I stay in a very remote area where there are no signals, but I may ensure all kind of arrangements for the net, for the connectivity issues, everything was, but just when it was about to go with the session, my everything went off. Now that makes me more anxious, curious how to, and it's a kind of research what you do to make things happen. Okay, so the you might see me pushed onto the road, but believe me, this is my school campus. Sometimes technology also brings you onto the road, but you have a plan B, and that's how you get into the affairs. Right. Experiential learning basically is something which enthuses the five senses what a child or a personality can have: the visual skills, the auditory, the kinesthetic, for that matter, taste, smell, anything. This experiential learning, which is now trending across, is because it motivates the children and it also encourages self-learning. They have the satisfaction of learning themselves rather than a one-way traffic of teacher kind of telling them some concepts. Then when it's the teacher who's going to keep telling them, it is rather going to be knowledge acquisition rather than the learning itself. That is what was happening some time back. Then it was a focus on the child, what the child needs, do that. Then from there, we made activity oriented or the experiential learning. Now, when there is an experiential learning, irrespective of the subject, what they teach, there is a scope for better concept being uh, taken by the child, because he has an hands-on experience. Remember, play, just think of a play being taught by an English teacher, or some kind of experiments being taught in the class. The child is, it's going to be a kind of routine and a boring stuff. Rather, if you're going to give the child a role play, that could enthuse, he would get into the role of the character, and then kind of uh, get the story well, get the play well, and he would not forget them at all. And instead, if he is going to the lab for a practical session, he will. But what is happening? What is the difference between this practical session in the classroom or the role play and an actual experiential learning? Experiential learning exposes the child to experiment, to research, the way scientists have done. We are going to talk here only about the learning process and not the learning outcome. I would like to stress upon that. The topic here I'm going to stress upon is experiential learning and the learning process, not the outcome of the learning process. The outcome of the learning process could be to master the concept which is taught, but during the process of learning, in the experiential learning, there can be things which the child can learn that does not happen. For example, like a photosynthesis. A photosynthesis, if you're going to teach in the classroom, it only happens that the teacher says sunlight, chlorophyll, water, all those uh, are taken by the plants to prepare their own food. But instead, if you are going to take them into phases, the first experiential learning, it can be divided among group in the classroom. Some of them will work on the need for chlorophyll. Some of them will work on the need for the water. Some of them will work for the need of sunlight. So one of the sunlight people will be keeping one at dark and one at the bright light. People who are working with water will keep them full of water, some lesser water and no water at all. So they keep observing, they come to a conclusion rather than you tell them that we, the plants prepare their food by these. You don't tell here. You just give an option. How do you think the plants prepare? And just you will have to monitor and then motivate them, be there stepwise to monitor each and every action and try to reflect on whatever is happening. That makes experiential learning much more interesting for the children because they do it by themselves. The first time I ever felt very happy was the day when I could make my own tea rather than depend upon my parents. Though you should not be asking how it tasted. Yes, it tasted bad, but I also knew why it tasted bad. There was a logical reasoning. There was an analysis. So when I went for making tea next time, I did it much better. So experiential learning, according to me, is a series of concepts arranged sequentially. It's experiential learning need not necessarily be supporting the concept. It can also be a way to show what does not happen when you try to teach a concept. So that way, I believe children are more enthusiastic in the form of experiential learning. We talk about agricultural practices. I am sure we have been learning about agricultural practices, which is throughout the same from back those days where they had the bull and the plow and all those things to now the latest technology like tractors pulling and then plowing, etc. Now, the procedure, they all know to define what is plowing, weeding, sowing seed, all those things. But when it comes to experiencing, if we can just give them a small piece of land and then to do these practices that will remain with them for the lifetime. Otherwise, they will be only knowing the definition without knowing what actually happens, what is the process involved, kind of. So that then I believe the actual learning starts. Now, we are also, it's because of the lockdown that we are not able to appreciate many of the things we have planned, but to tell you, the entire panel and the participants, our school is in a remote area, and it is under the CSR activity. CSR is the corporate social responsibility, where we don't charge anything, but we give them all facilities what a entire city can provide to the students, which means they don't have a roof over their top, but then when they come into the school, we have provided with all the facilities to them. This means all learning facilities, including the sports, games, all those things. Now, our idea is the the child who deserves good education should not be deprived because of their economic status. And I'm very happy about being a part of this school, because our children have also gone to US as a student exchange program. They have gone ways and miles away, securing good positions in the kind of competitive examinations. And that, so when I look at this all, there is somewhere some influence of learning by the methodology what we have done. So once the school is going to reopen, our thought process is that we'll arrange kind of uh, the school this week, a news channel where the speaking on a stage is different from speaking on a kind of news channel. They will have to record all the events, and they're going to present it. So that will make the communication skill much better, and it will also boost their confidence level. So it is more so only the role of the teacher is only like a catalyst or kind of facilitating better learning than stuffing all the knowledge to the child's. That's my take on experiential learning. That's it from me. Thank you.
Wonderful. So thank you. Thank you so much for that. Uh, Aarti ma'am, if we may come to you next. I know you have had some very interesting experiments in your school. So if you could have your initial thoughts on experiential learning, as well as if you would like to talk about some of your students' interesting experiments.
Namaskar, and thank you and for calling me over to be one of the panelists to discuss experiential learning. Experiential learning is something that keeps happening with all of us most of the time. Uh, for example, as parents, as teachers, as students, in the pandemic, we are learning every day. Online class methods